What's the trouble with Ferrari? They are fighting with their customer teams. Their customer teams, all right, they have the same engine as the customer team. So since the engine is down in power compared to other teams, it can be said that that's why they're fighting with their customer teams. But it's not right, because Mercedes has the same engine as Racing Point. Mercedes has the same engine as Williams. But Mercedes is not fighting with those teams. They're not fighting with those teams on track. So same thing. Ferrari should not be fighting with Haas. They shouldn't be fighting with Alfa Romeo, because even though they have the same engine as the customer teams, Mercedes' aero design is superior. Even if other teams are buying part from Mercedes, Mercedes cannot sell them every single part. So that's why, even though the same engine, the aero is different. But Ferrari, they have the same engine as their teams, and they are fighting with their teams. I don't need to say that Ferrari has a lot more resources as their customer team. They have way more resources. They can buy even both teams outright if they want it. So they should not be fighting with those teams even if they have the same engine, because even if they have the same engine, their chassis should be superior. So it means that Ferrari's problem are not just the engine, because everybody keeps saying the engine is down on power, but it's not just the problem. The problem is the chassis itself. Sure, if it was all engine, yes, the engine's bad, but if the chassis was pretty good, they should be able to be higher. They would not be in the same positions as Racing Point, they wouldn't be in the same position as Haas and Alfa Romeo. So I think this is where they need to start looking at. Or maybe if need be, they need to put back the designs from last year on the car, because they're somewhat similar to last year. So maybe this is something Ferrari should think about doing. But for some reason, teams almost never do that. In 2012 and 2013, the regulations were the same, and McLaren was fighting for the championship in 2012. Come 2013, they did not win a single race, and they never scored a single podium. And they were nowhere to be seen. They were not regularly in the top 5. And it didn't work out for them. So everybody kept thinking, why couldn't they just use last year's cars? But they never did that. So I'm kind of shocked that teams don't do that. But I guess after having spent all this money to make change to the chassis, you want to keep going with what you spent money on. So it's kind of stubborn. So almost no teams does that. But I think Ferrari needs to go back to doing that. They need to use some of the parts from last year, and maybe it might improve their fortunes, unless they were able to improve the engine this year somehow, which I doubt. But even if they do, it won't make much of a difference, because the chassis itself needs some work. Right now, unless they're able to improve the chassis significantly or the engine, they need to probably scrap this season and start focusing on 2022. That's it. They should just focus on 2022 and maybe just have a small crew of people working on the 2021 improvements.